Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges, advocate for OCD, in particular Pure OCD, which is also the name of my memoir. I'm a certified peer support specialist working with people all over the world who are working toward recovery for OCD. I also do referral consultations so I can help find therapists wherever you are in the world. Go to chrissyhodges.com to find out more. NoCD. NoCD is an app. Inside the app, you can find all kinds of resources, connect to people who have OCD, and they also do telehealth, doing ERP. So if you want to find out more about them, go to treatmyocd.com. Just wanted to come on. Hope all of you are doing well. We are in the middle of approaching the holiday season. I am going to do a video on the holiday season and how that impacts mental health here in the next week or so, because I know many of you are struggling with that. I'm getting emails and hearing some stuff, and I also struggle with that as well. So, but for today, I wanted to touch on something that I feel like I hear a lot when it comes to intrusive thoughts, especially when it comes to intrusive thoughts that bring on a lot of shame and guilt and things that you're reluctant to tell other people. There's not really any title to what I want to talk about. I just want to talk about the feeling that we get when we have lived with intrusive thoughts, in particular thoughts that cause a lot of shame and thoughts that make you feel embarrassed or unworthy. So mainly, it's the aftermath of having OCD and intrusive thoughts and how you feel about deserving happiness. So I wrote down a couple points I think are really important in living with OCD. So I am going to focus pretty heavily on taboo, repugnant, unacceptable intrusive thoughts, because a lot of times this is part of the experience of living with those. However, you can have all types of OCD and still experience huge degrees of shame and guilt, and this can also impact how you're feeling about deserving happiness or allowing yourself to be happy or deserving of a good life. So what this means is, OCD is so frustrating in the fact that it typically leads us to question things, intrusive thoughts, that have nothing to do with who we are, nothing to do with what we want, our values, morals. Even though you may have them for so long, you think, oh no, this may now be my values and morals. But that's why it's ego dystonic. It's not aligned with who we are. And then often you can get intrusive thoughts that are just persistent. The fear of vomiting, that's one that I deal with all the time and have since I was 8 years old. That doesn't have anything to do with my values, but it is something that I feel a lot of shame about. And when it impedes on my life and sometimes informs decisions that I make, or it impacts other people. So OCD in general can cause a lot of shame and guilt and embarrassment because it is happening to us. And I want to put emphasis on that sentence. It's happening to us, but we interpret it a lot of times in our head as we're causing it, because I'm producing the thoughts and I should be able to control thoughts. I should not have this thought, or I have these thoughts and I should be able to stop them. So we get into this internal battle with ourselves about how we must be the weak one. We must be stupid. We must want the thoughts. If we can't stop it, that must mean something. And that is the internal battle that goes on all the time with OCD. Now, when shame and guilt, embarrassment, and those kinds of emotions are a byproduct of this, we get into a whole other level of suffering, because we can have those kind of emotions and they can stick with us for years and years and years, even after effective treatment. Now, I've done a video on this and how shame, how high degree of shame can impact whether or not treatment is effective. So don't have the name of it, but I did it a couple months ago. So if you want more information about that, please go see that video. I'm also going to be on the OCD Stories soon talking about that, about some current research on how shame impacts treatment. So really excited to be able to share that with you and hopefully help you feel less alone. But a few things I wanted to go over about what I just discussed and how that can impact our recovery and how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves as deserving of happiness, contentedness, and that can really dictate a lot of the things in our life during OCD and after. So one of the bigger things that I hear often is I can't forgive myself. I can't let myself off of the hook. I can't reconcile with myself that I ever had these intrusive thoughts, that I ever allowed myself to think this, that the horrible images, the physical sensations, I can never forgive myself for this. I can never let it go. This is super common. And it is a shame that we have to deal with this because, again, what happens, we struggle with this for so long, and then we get in that weird logical battle with ourselves of like, why couldn't I have just stopped it? Or why can't I stop it now? And that also lends to, this must mean that there's some truth behind it. I must be a bad person for thinking this. No. Again, this is not your fault. You didn't choose the intrusive thoughts. We don't choose thoughts. No one chooses thoughts. People that don't have OCD can have bizarre, weird thoughts and they can let it go. We get stuck on them. We see it as a reflection of ourselves. And then we think future focused of, I can't go on. I can't allow myself to feel happiness because of this. I can never let this go. So this is really, really common. And I really wanted to bring that up for you just to know that if this is something that you're struggling with, this is part of the OCD experience. And this is where you may want to seek some treatment, seek some professional help on how to deal with shame, and guilt, and even trauma, right? Because OCD can cause trauma. A lot of our experience can lend itself to us being traumatized. So it's really important to understand that that could be an element that's impacting your recovery. Another thing is how the intrusive thoughts that we've had, especially like repugnant, taboo, intrusive thoughts, keeps us separated from other people. You know, I hear this so much from individuals, and that is, I really feel like if I don't tell people what my intrusive thoughts are, and a lot of times people are doing it so they can get feedback of like, okay, I'm so worried I'm having these pedophilic thoughts, but if my family tells me that I'm not a pedophile, then that means I'm not, and I can have, but that is reassurance, y'all. I mean, at the end of the day, we do know that the intrusive thoughts aren't real. And so if we're trying to get that reassurance from other people, it may bring you some relief briefly, but then you're going to also deal with a lot of other things on top of that of like, what if they really think that I am, and what if I really am, and then they find out that I am, and blah, 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 blah. So this can become an issue in between with other people and in relationships. What if I don't tell the person what I'm thinking and that means I'm lying to them? What if I don't reveal this and then they find out later that I was having these intrusive thoughts and I've betrayed them? Or if I'm lying to them? Again, okay, let me just say, and I've said this on many different videos, it is nobody's business what your themes are, okay? I know that it feels like if I don't tell someone I'm lying or they're not gonna know who I really am, well, A, you are not really OCD. You are you, and you have OCD. That's like saying I am a product of my diabetes. Like I am, I am low blood sugar. I mean, as stupid as that sounds, that's exactly what we're saying here when we're identifying who we are as a person with our OCD intrusive thoughts. These are symptoms. I know they don't feel like symptoms and they feel very real, but they are symptoms. And so to get caught in this loop, if I have to reveal to other people what I am thinking so they will know who I am and I'm not deceiving them, you're not deceiving them. This is an illness. It's not who you are. Thoughts are thoughts. I tell this to clients all the time. I don't want to know what my partner thinks all the time. I do not want to. That is like, he can keep his stuff to himself. Of course, I would always listen if he or any of my friends want to tell me what they're thinking or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't need to know every single thought that goes through someone's head in order to know them better. In fact, it might cause damage when it is becoming confession and it is becoming a compulsion in order to make other people better with you, right? So just be really careful about what the intention is when you feel like you need to tell somebody what your intrusive thoughts are. The intention is, why am I telling them? Is it to make myself feel better? Is it to hopefully make these go away or get reassurance that I'm not? This is when it becomes compulsive. So another Oh, and then another piece of that would be if people, this is where the second self piece can come in. It feels like there's two of me. There's the normal logical Chrissy, and then there's this weird other person in here that has all these thoughts and is so scared all the time. And but again, that's what the ego dystonic piece. It also is when you are in fight and flight, which is the central nervous system, being activated because you think you're in danger. It is a non-threat with OCD, but everything about your central nervous system is still acting as if it's a threat. When you are in that state of mind, it is survival. Okay? So when you're in survival mode, it is very difficult to connect to your authentic self. So you're in this state where you are only connected to the person that's trying to survive. So what happens is it makes you feel like you have two different selves. There's the second self. And so what people will often say is, I need to, when they're dealing with intrusive thoughts and they're in that state of mind for so long and they feel disconnected with themselves, they then feel disconnected from other people. And what comes about with that is, if people knew what I was going through, if they knew I was thinking all this all the time, they wouldn't love me. I would not be deserving of their friendship. They would abandon me. This is a very common fear. Again, one that can push people into confession, which is a compulsion. But it really does make you feel like people will never really get to know the real you. The real you is still intact. It doesn't feel that way when you are in survival mode, meaning when you are in an OCD episode, when you are triggered, when you are dealing with this, it doesn't feel like the real you. It feels like something's taking over. But that is part of why OCD is so pervasive, because it feels so real. And that in itself can drive the OCD cycle. This can't be OCD this time because it feels so real. And then when it's, of course, reflecting on how we think other people would view us if they knew, this can really exacerbate depression. It can exacerbate hopelessness. But I wanted you to know today, this is a very, very common fear that people struggle with. Another thing, and well, this is kind of lastly, I have two more things. When we have had the OCD experience, or when we are having the OCD experience, but I want to emphasize, even in reflection, even if you've had a successful therapy, you may look back and have a trauma response to some of the things that you thought, and the images, the physical sensations, but you might think to yourself, because of that situation, which relates back to, I can't forgive myself for this, I don't feel like I ever deserve to be happy. I don't feel like I ever, and what will happen is, it's very similar to grief. When you lose somebody, when you're trying to continue to live life, and you may laugh at some point, you may think, I shouldn't laugh because I should be grieving that I lost this person, right? It is very similar to this with OCD. When you get better, or when you're maybe not in a huge OCD episode or trigger, or even if you are, but I'm just focusing more on when you're not, even after effective treatment, you may experience happiness, and then all of a sudden you come back down on yourself and you go, I don't deserve this. No person that had the thoughts that I had deserves happiness. I don't deserve a good life. And what you're doing is you're engaging in this self-punishment, again, for something that is not your fault. And self-punishment is also compulsive. You may not ever heard that before. And in fact, I only learned this in the last couple years. But punishing yourself for the thoughts and for the things that, the compulsions you had to do, or the images or the feelings that you had, that is compulsive and can also pull you back in. I also want to tell you that shame is, I've said this before, even in this video, shame is such a huge part of this that can be a barrier to quality of life. There is actually a study, I don't have it in my brain, or I don't have it right here and in my brain where I could tell you, but there was a recent study where the shame of OCD and BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, even after effective treatment, when the symptoms were relieved, the shame was still so pervasive that the quality of life was impacted. So if you're struggling with this and you feel like, but I've had treatment or I have had relief, I don't understand, you may actually be dealing with the shame. And shame is such a huge emotional barrier for us in feeling like we can be happy and feeling like we deserve a good life and feeling like we deserve love. I'm going to tell you something. You deserve love. You may not believe me and you may hear me and go, Christy, you say that to everybody, but I'm the one person that doesn't. Well, that's bullshit, because I felt that way too. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve happiness. And I struggle with that a lot, even to this day. But I have to choose to believe that I do. And if I'm choosing to believe that I do, then I can choose to believe that you do. And you can choose it too. You did not ask for this illness. You did not ask for the intrusive thoughts, okay? It's not your fault. You're not causing it. You're not stupid enough that you don't know how to stop it. This is the communication between your brain and the central nervous system is not logical. It's behavioral. That's how you have to learn how to manage it, not logically. So there's no way you can out-logic this. No way. So that's why we get stuck over and over and over. And that's why we think it must be me that's causing this when it is not. Lastly, I just wanted to say another source of I don't deserve love, I don't deserve a good life, what kind of person would do these things is when things have happened in our life that have been real event, and then now they're coming. I have tons of videos on this, like child's play stuff, things like that have become part of our OCD cycle, but also when I have tested myself doing compulsions. And that's when you may say to yourself, well, I've acted on this stuff. I can never forgive myself. I say this in a lot of videos, acting is in the eye of the beholder. When it's compulsive and you're testing, and an example of this would be someone coming to me saying, I acted on feelings of being a pedophile. And I'm always curious, like, okay, tell me how you acted on it. And they'll be like, I was at a birthday party for my nieces or nephews or something, and I picked my niece up and hugged her. I acted on it. That's not acting on pedophilia, by the way. You may have been feeling like, okay, I'm going to hug my niece, and I'm going to see if I have intrusive thoughts, or what does that mean, or how am I feeling, or whatever. That is compulsive. That is a compulsion. That is not an intended, I'm acting on this, right? But what we do is we can distort anything that we have done as a compulsion into, oh no, that means I acted on it, and that means I'm a bad person, which then goes into I don't deserve, and people get very scared about this, because in your mind, I could put my arm around one of my girlfriends if I'm having sexual orientation OCD because I'm testing, and then I could later think, oh my God, why did I do that? I acted on it by putting my arm around my friend, but was I? No, I was doing a compulsion. And so I can distort that into believing that I did act on it, which then pushes me back into that whole self-punishment. I don't deserve anything. So I wanted to bring that up because it's really important and people get very stuck on that. I know that this was a lot, and I packed it in 18 minutes, but these are some things that have really been coming up for a lot of people, and really it feeds into that other layer of having OCD, which is because of my intrusive thoughts, because of the experience, because of the shame, I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve a good life. And then when I am happy, I think you shouldn't be happy because of everything you've been through. Let me tell you something. We deserve fucking happiness. We do. This is a tough disorder. It's not fair. It's hard to live with. It is basically like self-abuse over and over and over and over, and you can't escape the abuse cycle of yourself. It's important to get help. If you're still struggling, it's important to get more help. Process the trauma, process the shame, do some peer support. That's what I do with people. I've got groups. You go meet people online like you can at NoCD in the app. Meet other people so you don't have to go through this alone. Shame can't live in the light, right? That's what Brené Brown says. And so when the shame helps to be dissipated, when we are talking to other people, when we can identify that we are not alone in this journey, and trust me, you aren't. All the things I just said in this video, I know your brain is going, I know, but I don't deserve happiness because I had this and this. Everybody says that. And you aren't alone in that. And I hope that it in any way that can eliminate the shame that you're feeling about your experience, because this is not your fault. And I am so sorry that you are going through or have gone through this. I have too. And I do my best to live the best life I can. And I choose to believe I do deserve happiness the same way you do. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. If you're looking for services from me, chrissyhodges.com. From NoCD, treatmyocd.com. Bye-bye.